The Terps are going to upset Indiana.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day, and also publisher at InsideBlackandGold.net. Make sure you guys go to Inside Black and Gold for all your Terps news. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Maryland football will go to Indiana this week and upset the Indiana Hoosiers. I think it's time. I think it's the biggest game of the year. I think it's one of the most important game probably of the year this weekend against Indiana, tomorrow afternoon at 12 o'clock. And I'm here to give my prediction, and I think the Terps beat Indiana tomorrow afternoon. I think that we upset the Hoosiers, and this will be an upset. Indiana is a 7-point favorite right now, which I'm not saying that's a ridiculous number or anything, but I do think it would be considered an upset if we beat these guys. But let me tell you something. Indiana hasn't seen a team like us yet. They haven't. And I'm not here to act like Maryland's Alabama or Georgia, two teams that have actually a huge game against each other this weekend. Another game I bet a lot of you guys will probably watch, the Georgia-Alabama game, a little bit in the evening, so you can still watch the Maryland game as well. But all I'm saying is Indiana hasn't seen anybody like us, and I think that's totally fair to say. They've played Charlotte. Okay, they've crushed Charlotte. They've played UCLA as their best opponent so far. UCLA's not good this year. They don't have a good team. FIU they beat. Western Illinois they beat. They haven't seen a Big Ten team like us. They haven't seen a real Big Ten opponent. Sure, UCLA's technically in the Big Ten now, but they're still just not that good of a football program. They're still working on rebuilding and getting that thing back to where they want it to be. I just don't think UCLA is that good, but I think that is going to play into our hands. The fact that Maryland's already been tested a little bit. We've already played two better teams than they have played all year. Virginia would have been the best team they've played all year, and so would have Michigan State. And we've already played two of those teams. And yeah, we've had some cupcakes on our schedule, like Villanova, like UConn early. But I think the Michigan State game and the Virginia game are going to prepare us more for this game against Indiana. It's going to have us ready to go because I think that Indiana hasn't played anybody, and you can't replicate that until you actually get on the field against a real solid Big Ten opponent, which is where I would categorize Maryland right now. I think we're a good, solid Big Ten team. We're not elite. We're not like a bottom of the pack either. We're a good, solid Big Ten team that if you want to beat us, you're going to have to play good football to beat us. And I'm not saying Indiana's not a good football team, but I just don't think they've played anyone. So I think when I've really done the research on Indiana, all the numbers and stuff are kind of just misconstrued. Like everything looks better than it actually is, like including their quarterback, Curtis Rourke. I don't want to say he's overrated, but I'm just saying this. He's top of the Big Ten in almost every single stat. Like when you look at it, he has some of the best stats in the Big Ten. But I can't even get carried away about it because I'm like, I don't think it's just because, oh, yeah, like he's been outplaying all the quarterbacks in the Big Ten and he's been playing really well against good opponent. It's just they haven't played anyone. And so when I look at an Indiana team, I'm still kind of suspect. I'm still a little bit unsure about what exactly they are. I don't know if I'm sold on these guys at Indiana because they haven't played anyone. I know Curtis Rourke's a transfer quarterback, and I'm telling you, he's near the top in almost every category. Feels like he's top 3. Touchdowns, he's top of the conference. He has 0 interceptions to lead the conference. His completion percentage is near the top of the conference. His yards is 3rd in the conference. Like he's doing a lot of good things. But I do believe that the Maryland defense will be better tomorrow and will play their best game of the year. And I'll talk about some of the scoring stuff and if I think the game will be high scoring a little bit later because there's some interesting factors that go onto that. But I do think that Indiana's going to be able to score some, but I think Maryland's defense will come up with enough stops to win the game. And I think that the fact that Aiden Childs of Michigan State burnt us early on in the season is going to help us in this game against Indiana. It's better to find out early than find out now against Indiana your weaknesses. I think that, it sucks to take Michigan State, Aiden Childs, who hasn't even looked that good this year, throw all over us and throw all over the place on us and have 363 yards and hear about this Nick Marsh kid having a really big game against us, the 4-star kid that was a freshman this year, having almost 200 yards on us coming out party. But it was almost good because now the secondary, I'm not saying it's fixed. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying it's amazing yet. But at least we know that we can't play another game like we did against Michigan State. And I don't mean like, they know that, we can't give up those big gains to Michigan State. I mean, schematically, they know they can't do some of those things. Technique-wise, they probably have improved. The coaching staff has a better sense of who should be playing. And we made a lot of early mistakes to a team like Michigan State, but I think that'll help us in the end against a team like Indiana. And when I look at the quarterback battle, Curtis Rourke versus Billy Edwards, I think Billy Edwards holds his own. And it's crazy how people are switching up now and they're putting Billy Edwards as a top 7 or 8 quarterback in the Big Ten. Before the season started, a lot of people had him last in the Big Ten. And now people want to put him in top of their lists and all these different things, which I'm not going to hate on. I'm not going to be like they're wrong. But the fact that before the season started, people were really down on him shows a lot. But I think that Billy Edwards wins us this game. I think our defense gets enough stops, but I do think Indiana scores a good bit. But I think Billy Edwards has a really big game, and this is how I see it going. I see them being so focused on Ty Felton and so focused on trying to slow him down that some of these other guys get open. Some of these guys like Caden Prather, Dylan Wade, those 2 guys stick out in my head really hard. I could see Octavian Smith potentially having a big day just because they're so focused on double teaming Ty Felton, make sure he doesn't get over the top, make sure he doesn't get open on 3rd down. They forget Caden Prather is amongst the best in the Big Ten as well. Dylan Wade's an elite receiving tight end as well. Preston Howard too. And then they forget Roman Hemby out the backfield as long. And Nolan Ray can do some special things. And I think everybody else kind of has a coming out game. And we're able to beat them that way just because their game plan doesn't work in making everyone else beat us, and Ty Felton's not going to win us the game. And I think Billy Edwards' legs also make it really hard to stop the Maryland offense. So I do think it's a back and forth type of game. We definitely don't beat them by more than, I would say, 7 points. But I think Maryland gets it done. I think the Terps are going to beat Indiana tonight. Or tomorrow, excuse me. And I think that they figure it out. I think Coach Loxley's game plan is going to be good going into that game, and I don't think Indiana's ready. I don't think they've seen anybody like us yet. And they can game plan all they want, but this is the first real test for Indiana. We've been tested against Michigan State. We've been tested against Virginia, where it was a tie game at the half. They haven't been tested. And until you know what it's like to be actually out there really struggling to get a win, you can't replicate it. Doesn't matter if you have guys that have been in their past. Doesn't matter if there's a bunch of freshmen. Doesn't matter. It's a new team every single year, and it's not easy at all to beat a team and to beat a tough team like Maryland, especially if you're Indiana. I don't think they have like more talent than us. I think a lot of stuff is clicking for them, but they have yet to get punched in the mouth. So I would say if you're Maryland, try to deliver the first punch. Punch them in the mouth, see how they respond, because they haven't yet. And so I think Maryland will upset the Indiana Hoosiers because I don't think Indiana has played anyone like us. I think that our weaknesses came out against Michigan State, and I think the coaching staff is going to figure it out. And I'm expecting Billy Edwards to continue the trend of playing high-level quarterback play. I haven't seen anything to say this guy's going to regress, so I feel pretty good about Maryland getting a win on Friday. And I think that they get this season back on track and make up for the loss against Michigan State. What are the biggest storylines of this game? I'll talk about that, everything you need to know going into the game after this ad from Robinhood and PrizePicks. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth of any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For products specific to closers, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 players' stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you one win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right, only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free dubs. Don't miss the deal on PrizePicks because it's going when September ends. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Player and stats types you're selecting. Highlight your winnings from PrizePicks. How fun and simple the experience of playing the game is. So download PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONCollege on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. So there are some interesting storylines going into this game, and I wanted to make this its own segment because there's some things I feel like we got to talk about. I was reading about the game, and I didn't realize a couple of things. I want to start off with there could potentially be some rain and 11-mile-per-hour winds, according to the Weather Channel. That's what it says on the Maryland SB Nation page. So that's something that's definitely interesting. Is at first I'm thinking, okay, it's a high-scoring game. Maryland's secondary suspect. Maryland's defense has been all year at best. Has been okay. Hasn't been great. Maybe it's been good against UConn or Villanova. Hasn't been good against Michigan State. Was up and down against Virginia. And so I was thinking, Curtis Rourke in Indiana, they've got it going. They're going to throw the ball over us, and they have a good rushing game. They're going to score points. And I still kind of think that. But you got to realize when the weather is bad, when the wind is high, offenses just usually aren't as effective because it's hard to play with a slippery ball. It's hard when the wind is going. It's hard for the quarterbacks to throw. Billy Edwards has a pretty strong arm, so he should be able to throw through the wind and stuff. But still, it's something that we got to talk about. And I don't think it hurts Maryland if the game's a little bit sloppy. Like when I think of some of these sloppy games, there's usually a team that it helps, I feel like, and usually a team that it hurts. And I think this might be a situation where if it's one of those types of games, I don't hate Maryland those types of games because it's a road game. Slopping it down could help. Slowing down their offense could help us. Plus, Billy Edwards doesn't only throw the football. We know he can run the ball. So if it's a sloppy day, we can get that going as well, which should make it easier for us to run the football overall. So that's definitely something to think about when I'm thinking about this game on Saturday is how the weather's actually going to come in. Because right now, high winds, there's going to be rain the night before and rain potentially during the game. So it could be a kind of ugly type of game, but it's definitely something that I think you have to think about going into this game for the Terps. And then I think yesterday I said a storyline is this is a really defining point of our season. Like if we win this game, you could say we've had a successful start to the season. We slipped up against Michigan State, but we beat Indiana, we beat Virginia, we beat the other teams we were supposed to beat, and we're looking good and our goals are still in front of us. But if we fall to 0-2 in the Big Ten, because remember, that Virginia game, yeah, it's a Power 4 win. It's an ACC win. That's not a Big Ten win. So right now we're 0-1, bottom of the Big Ten. If we fall to 0-2 in the Big Ten, there's not much you can do to dive yourself out of it. Especially with this later schedule, with still having Oregon, USC, some of these other really good teams, Iowa, Penn State on the schedule. This isn't one of those games we probably want to drop. So I think that's a real storyline. Maryland potentially falling to 0-2, not something that we want to do against Indiana. So that's why I think it's a really big win. And maybe I could have even said this was a must-win game for the Terps. And then the secondary, it's been really bad. We've given up the most yards in the Big Ten in the secondary. And so I think that's another storyline I'm thinking about. Can we slow down the receiving core? Can we slow down Curtis Rourke? I think that might be the deciding factor of the game. If Maryland's secondary plays good to great to pretty good, I think we win the game. But if they throw the ball over us, if they can convert whenever they want on third down, I don't know if I like us to win this game. I just don't know. And we've got young guys, we've got guys, we just don't have a lot of experience in that room. And so we haven't seen it be good. So you're wondering, can it be better than it has been? And then I think you also would say Billy Edwards' second road test is another storyline that I'm thinking about. He's looked good in his first real road test against Virginia, but this is a second one, but this one's bigger. This is like a huge road test. Virginia was like, definitely a road test, but this is the really big one. Indiana has some excitement in that program, and so they're not going to just let us come in there and win that game easily. That's not what this game is going to be. This game is going to be a grind, and Billy Edwards is going to have to figure it out. So I think that's a storyline, him going into his second big-time road game of the year, and really of his young, or I don't want to say young, I guess you would say young career, even though he's kind of up there in eligibility. So those are a couple of storylines that we definitely want to think about. And then I think the last thing I want to point out, can we make Indiana's offense not super balanced? It's been balanced all year. They have a kid averaging over 7 yards per carry, and their quarterback is throwing all over the place. Like, it's been average all year. I mean, it's been balanced all year, not average. It's been much better than average. Can we force them into doing one thing poorly? I think that's a big part of it. Or one thing just at a not great level. Maybe not poorly, but they can't really run the ball. Maybe they have a couple decent runs, but they can't really get it going. Or they're able to run the ball, but the pass game isn't really there. Can we get one of those things, or are we going to allow them to be balanced? I think that's a big storyline to this game. I think the biggest one, though, is the rain that I talked about. I think that's something that's going to be a deciding factor on how this game goes. What's going to happen with the spread? Who wins the game? Who covers? I'll give you my score prediction, over, under, all those different things. I'll talk about that after this ad from FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You guys remember, you can go to FanDuel and bet on the Maryland game if you want. If you want to take the Terps +7, or if or an Indiana fan watching this, you want to take Indiana -7, whatever you want to do, just go onto FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. So Maryland, I think, covers. I already told you guys I think Maryland's going to upset, so you guys kind of already know that I think the Terps are going to cover. But when I really look at it, I do think 7 points, I don't want to say is a little steep because obviously Vegas knows more than me. But I haven't predicted a game wrong this year. Look at my record. I've gotten every single game right. I said Michigan State was going to cover against us. I said that we would cover against the UConn. I said we would cover against Virginia. Every single game I've gotten right this year, which is pretty cool. But I feel like when you watch a team every single game, you have a much better understanding of kind of where they lie, how things are. And so I do feel confident in a lot of these, but I think 7 points is a little bit much, and I think Maryland covers. I said we're going to win the game, but I don't feel as good about us winning the game as much as I do about us covering, which obviously would make logical sense. That you would probably, if you think a team's going to win, you feel even better about them covering if they're the underdog. So I do like Maryland with the 7 because I think that our team is getting a little bit undervalued still, just because of, I think Billy Edwards, a lot of people think maybe he's not supposed to be as good as he's supposed to be. People also don't think our defense maybe is good. The guys in Vegas, the way they value us, just because the way they've played hasn't been good. But I think there's a lot of places where we can continue to get better, where guys can continue to play well, places where we can just start to continue to improve on specifically defense side of the ball. And so I do think the 7's a little bit steep, especially if it's a rainy game where nobody can score. I do like the Terps to win in that type of game. And I like the Terps to cover. It's hard to cover in those types of games where there's a lot of rain, there's a lot of wind, nobody can really score. It's a low-scoring battle. It's hard to cover 7 points in those when there's not a lot of touchdowns being scored on the board. So I think if it's that type of game, I think Terps absolutely are going to cover that spread. I'll be interested to see if the number changes. I don't think it will. I think it will stay at about 7. But I do think Maryland will cover that spread. The over-under is really interesting because I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, this wind and this rain, what does that mean? Is there value in the under? Is there value in the under now? I think there kind of is. But the over-under is at 53. I would take the under just because of what I'm hearing about the weather. If there's no weather, I feel like I don't know if I really would have a feel for that number, but I do think I'd take the under because of that. But the number one thing I'm concerned about with the Terps covering is our run game has been bad against Big Ten teams. It feels like it's been bad for a while now. It feels like we haven't been able to run the ball at all in the Big Ten. So I don't feel good about that and Roman Hemby get going and Nolan Ray getting going. I don't feel awesome about that, but I do think that Billy Edwards, hopefully his legs can open up some of the plays down the field for the Terps. I'm hoping that can be something that Maryland's able to do in some of the run lanes and some of the things, read options, those types of things for the backs. But I don't feel awesome about us covering if we can't run the ball at all. I think we'll be able to run the ball somewhat, and I hope Roman Hemby gets going. I really do. But if we can't get him going, I don't think the Terps are going to be able to win. But I do think it's going to go a little bit. Also, Indiana's offensive line has been good, but they haven't seen a defensive line unit like us as well. So I think getting some pressure will allow us to cover the spread a little bit more, and I do think we will because I don't think they're going to be used to like us. But my final score predictions, I'm going to go with a little bit of a lower scoring game. I'm going to go Maryland 23, Indiana 20 in a windy type of game, but some points still get scored. I'm going to go Caden Prather has a big day. Caden Prather has 2 touchdowns, I'm going to predict, because they're going to shift the coverage to double Ty Felton, and Caden Prather goes off and a couple of Roman Hemby big carries. I think we're in for as well. That's my prediction for this game. And watch out for a sack from Jordan Phillips. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked On Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked On Terps.